It's Monday, which means it's time for another episode. The show that isn't a show. This is the Weekly Pint. This is a live stream, a live stream of consciousness of just whatever is going on in my life, with my life, with the blog, with the podcast, with whatever else just happens to be going on. Any exciting beer or drink related things that are also happening. It all ends up here in this one fun spot. So thank you for joining me. This is an interactive show too. So if you want to interact, you can comment obviously on the Facebook stream which you are watching, or you can text, or you can call also to the drunk line, as I lovingly call it. It's 56770 drink. Or if you don't understand how all of that crazy technology works with numbers and letters that are the same thing, it's 567-703-7465. I'm actually assuming that you can text. I've never actually gotten a text message on the drunk line, but you can also do that. I don't know why you would text if you are staring at Facebook, where you can also comment. So, but you can. So, tell me what you're drinking. Tell me what you're thinking. Ooh, that rhymes. That should be I guess, the tagline for the show. What are you drinking? What are you thinking? Because this is just, like I said, a free-form stream of consciousness. It started with the idea that I was going to create a live stream for Patreon supporters, which, if you want to support anything that I do, that's the easiest way to do it. You can go to thegnarlygnome.com/support. I'm working on some other stuff on that side to kind of make it easier to do one-off donations if you want to do that. But that's how you support. Not that you have to do that, but it's always appreciated. It started out as a thing kind of for that, and has turned into something else. If you are a Patreon supporter, you get access to the archive of old Weekly Pint episodes, and who knows what the Weekly Pint will look like in the future. It's growing, it's changing. The idea of being able to take phone calls and things like that, and maybe some guests and that sort of thing, is definitely there. So that's what it is. That's what we're doing. Welcome. Like I said, tell me what you're drinking. I'm drinking a March 1st Swiss chocolate stout because it's 7.5%, and that sounded right about the sweet spot for what I needed tonight. So I'm sipping on it. It's delicious. It's chocolatey. It's a little bit of lactose in there too, so I think. So it's got that kind of rounded, creamy mouthfeel. It's absolutely perfect. This time of year, or I guess a little bit earlier in the winter, I think it's always fun with a shot of March 1st's peppermint schnapps in there, and it's like a chocolatey, pepperminty glass of deliciousness. But my bar is all the way over there, and I can't get to it. So sorry, I'm not going to put that in there. My wife just texted me, if you heard a buzz on the table, she said she wants to come drink that beer, but she's knocked up, so she can't. Sorry, honey. You'll have to just deal with it. She texted my other number, though, so I still don't know if text messages actually come through on the drunk line. Um, so if somebody wants to text me, do that, because it'll be fun to see if it works. I am still getting over a cold too, so I will try to remember to hit the mute button every time I cough into your face, but I can't promise, because that is not the way the Brewcast ever works. So when I'm in studio, I always forget that I can mute things before they happen. What else is going on? So there hasn't been a whole lot that I've been dumping into the blog this week. There was obviously the news about the Firehouse Grill and their upcoming grand opening, which is going to be February 20th. That whole weekend, they're doing a big kind of grand opening celebration, and we actually will be there next week to talk to them. So next week's Cincy Brewcast will be kind of a dive into who they are and what they're all about. So I won't spoil too much there, but I'm excited about getting in there and seeing what they've done with adding a brewery to a space that was kind of a classic craft beer spot here in Cincinnati. one of those places that pretty early on embraced drinking local and what that meant. And there's some history with an old brewery that used to be in the building too. So it's a fun place and a fun idea. And good friend Justin Cheney is heading up their brewing operations there. And if you listen to the show, you know how much I love Justin. And so we'll talk to him and talk about how this is kind of different than his other jobs and kind of what that brings to the whole equation. So what else? Let me get a drink of beer, see if that makes my cough go away. I am interested to see what everybody's drinking. So as you get on, please chime in and tell me what you're drinking. One other thing that's kind of new news this week is Braxton. They finally got their Tropic Flair, which is their year-round New England IPA. They finally got it into 6-packs instead of 4-packs, which on the surface doesn't sound like a big deal. But the ability to get a year-round New England IPA into a $9.99 6-pack is something that I think a lot of people around town were craving. So I think it's big. I think they would think it's big. Um, if you're a New England fan, you should definitely think it's big because it gives you that ability to have New England's in your fridge at all times that are fresh and reasonably priced. You don't have to go out chasing the 4-packs. Although Braxton does that too at Labs, they've got um, some really great New Englands that are happening there too. But the missing piece of the puzzle for a while has been this year round 6-pack that's priced normally. So I'm happy to see that Tropic Flair has kind of fit that 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 missing part of the puzzle. It makes it a little more of a normal beer style instead of something that's like a special one-off release. So I'm excited to see that. It's good for Braxton. They've got some other fun stuff coming up that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but we will be talking about soon. We've already started talking about an upcoming show with them too that isn't nailed down the date yet, but we'll have some fun stuff to talk about that. Ah, a stupid cough. So this cold, I have this issue where whenever I get a shitty virus, it moves into my ears and 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 so I can't hear out of one side of my head. Oh, I always forget that Marco, you can't drink things with lactose. So yeah, Tropic Flair has a little bit of lactose in it. The beer I'm drinking tonight has a little bit in it too. I'm drinking that Swiss chocolate stout, so you wouldn't be able to drink that one either. There's this idea of what in New England, what a milkshake IPA, this whole thing is probably a big topic. We've talked about it a little bit, I think, on the show, but it's something that I should probably dive into a little bit heavier one of these days of what those differences between the styles are. But yes, Tropic Flair has a little kick of lactose to add that creaminess and stuff to it. It's good beer, but yeah, if you can't drink lactose, you can't drink it. So sorry. You're lucky that you work for a fantastic brewery that also has some really incredible New England IPAs. So I'm sure some of those do not have lactose, and then you can choose to imbibe in those. Higher Gravity. We should talk about that a little bit. They announced their second location. Hopefully, I'm going to get something up on the blog. Hopefully this week. We'll see. Um, about about their second location. They're getting ready to open. They announced that they are moving into not moving. I should it's a second location. So they're opening Higher Gravity 2. And I don't think they're calling it that, but that's what I'm calling it. In Summit Park, which is in Blue Ash. Fitting since I'm drinking March 1st beer. Um, sorry. What I think is really, really cool about the second location is that different than a lot of the other beer stores that are around town, all of the packaged beer that they have in this location is going to be kept cold, which is obviously better for beer. I think we all know that at this point, right? Um, but this is the first time I've heard of a store kind of saying, you know what, everything that we do in packaging is going to be cold, not just to make the beer last longer and stay fresher, but it enables you to kind of just walk in, and if you see something on a shelf that you want to drink, you can get it right there and take it up to the counter and pay for it, and then they'll crack it open and you can drink it. They do that currently a lot of places, um, but you've got to use they have like the wine chiller things that use cold water or whatever to speed chill it. Currently, that's the only way to get it to temperature quick enough. Um, so this will be interesting to kind of take that to a different place and enable you to just drink a beer when you want to. What else? They have there will be seating for 80 to 100 with an outdoor patio also. I remember to hit the mute button that time, so I didn't cough in your face. Um, so this is going to be a pretty good sized bottle shop. There's already 290 apartments going into Summit Park, which is right there. So it, it's the first kind of announced retail spot as part of this new phase of what Summit Park is going to be. Uh, Obviously, there's plenty of apartments and condos and houses around their first location in Northside, but this is um, they're going to be kind of the spearhead, I guess, of this new phase of development over there in Summit Park. When you ask, or when they put out the press release, kind of why they opened Higher Gravity in the first place, the quote that they put in there was that Higher Gravity is an answer to what we saw as a gap in the market, a place to go that had a great selection of beer and wine and was easy to navigate. If you listen to Cincy Brewcast on a regular basis, you can kind of remember back to the last time we were at BC's, which was episode 36 of this season, which was back in like November, I think, something like that. And they at BC's, it's a very similar kind of idea that was the reason for them kind of creating that when they opened. So um, this idea of this other type of place is is exciting to me. My normal bottle shop, I should say my current normal bottle shop. There are places that I would like to make my normal bottle shop that um, I may start phasing in heavier than the place I currently go, but um, it's a different type of vibe than what these places are. It really is kind of a neighborhood spot, and there's a community that forms around the bottle shop itself in a very different way than it happens at bigger beer stores. And so I think it's really really brilliant to not just have a couple of these places around town, but to start to see them opening multiple locations and being able to continue that vibe and use the strength that multiple locations can give them. It's fun. It's exciting to see, and I'm really excited for the guys at Higher Gravity. I think it's prime time that we get out there for a brewcast one of these weeks. We have the next couple weeks are definitely set in stone and booked, but once we get into to March, it starts to open up a little bit, and maybe I'll make a call and see if we can get out there to do a show. They did some really fun stuff on YouTube a while back that I wish they would have continued, but I know that they are definitely marketing savvy. Um, they know what they're doing. I did not talk about the fest yet, so um, we can talk about that right now if I pull up my notes. If I can find it. Give me just a minute. So we're talking about the Higher Gravity Fest, HG Fest. Is that actually what they call it, or they have a more clever name for it? I'm trying to pull up the Facebook event here. Higher Gravity Fest, or yeah, I think that's all. HG Fest is what they have it as the actual event. So they do a festival that has two different sessions. Each of the sessions are 4.5 hours each, which is plenty of time to try a whole bunch of beer. Um, their description on here says Higher Gravity is announcing our first annual HG Fest, a day of beer tasting that includes only beers that live up to our name, aka they have a shit ton of alcohol. So it's big beers. We will have at least 14 high gravity slash rare beers available for you to sample. I'm curious, out of the people that are on here, I think there's only five of you or six of you right now, but um, is anybody going? Brian, are you planning on going to this festival? It brings up kind of another topic too of beer festivals and what does it take to get you to go to a beer festival these days. Um, Seems like there's a lot more than there used to be, and at the same time, it's calmed down a little bit in the last year or two. But we're definitely not at our peak festival craziness, but there is still a lot of festivals. Um, this one tickets are now up to $50 for pre-purchase, or if you at the door, if you get it, they are $60, and that is for 14 beer tickets. That's valid for 5-ounce pours of any of the 14 beers on tap. It includes a commemorative taster glass and a $3 off coupon for Ocelot Pizza during the event. You can get additional pours after your tickets for $5, and they say all beers are above 8%. Um, is it really just down to beer selection at a festival? Is that kind of the deciding factor for what makes people decide they want to go, or does it have to be something else? I don't know. I mean, I don't go to as many festivals as I think I used to, but there's still a few around town that I lean towards. So their beer list, they are pouring Rheingeist Night Whale. That's their um, bourbon barrel aged imperial stout they just released recently in bottles. It's 16.2% ABV. You have Revolution. I've always pronounced it as Death Star. I've actually heard his name pronounced as Deeth also, so I don't know if it's actually supposed to be Deeth Star, but Revolution Death Star, that's 14.8% ABV. Um, there is Listerman's Barrel Aged Buckeye Chicao, Jackie O's Brick Kiln, Bourbon Barrel Aged, of course. The Founders Nitro CBS. I don't think I've ever had it on Nitro. That's interesting. Uh, Brink's Barrel Aged Vilnius Schoolmaster. I actually don't know that I've had that one either. That's a Baltic Porter, Hoof Hearted Stack and Paper, Triple IPA, Big Bad Baptist Chocolate Rapture, Saunders Big John Barley Wine, Jolly Pumpkin Bourbon Barrel Aged Madrugda Obscura. That's a Imperial Stout. Southern Tier Nitro Hot Cocoa, Jackie O's Oro Blanco, Columbus Brewing Company, Drusus, 2X IPA, and then Urban Artifacts Grandfather Clock, which is barrel aged um, barrel aged sour with Concord grapes, black currants, red plums, vanilla beans. It's a straight up Urban Artifact deliciousness. So I mean, it's a good beer list, but I don't know. It's like I said, it takes a lot to get me to drop money on a beer festival, and I don't know that the tap list alone does it for me anymore. But I'm curious about everybody else. Is that the deciding factor for you guys? Um, Please comment. Let me know. Send send a text message to 56770 drink, or call in to 56770 drink if you so desire. We've got a few more minutes here on the show before we head before we head out, so I can go sit on the couch and cough in peace. Um, Hopefully, I'll get this cold completely shaken before this next week's brewcast. If speaking of the brewcast, hang on, let me get another drink before we jump into that. It's um, before I started this live stream or a solo show that isn't a show, I never anticipated how difficult it would be just to sit there and talk. You don't get a chance to actually sit and drink beer, which is half the reason I do podcasts and things like that anyway. So, um, this show, I don't get to drink as much as I would like to. Oh, that's a good beer. Um, so this current week on the Brewcast, if you have not listened to it already, if you don't subscribe to the Brewcast currently, you should probably do that too after we finish up the live broadcast here or the live stream. This week we were out at Humble Monk, which I've only been to a couple times, and was really excited to finally get a chance to sit down and talk to them and figure out what they're all about, and kind of dive into that story a little bit deeper. They are a Belgian-inspired brew. Excuse me, Belgian-inspired brewery. So all of their, well, I shouldn't say all of their beers are Belgian ales, because as you'll see when you listen to the show, they do have several that are more standard kind of offerings. They have a hazy IPA. They have a imperial IPA. Um, they have a few different hard seltzers, malt-based hard seltzers on tap. Which no, we will not dive into hard seltzer on this episode, I promise. But they do have some other stuff. They had an English mild the one time I was there, so there are other types of beers other than just Belgians, but they did have the majority of their beers that were on tap were definitely Belgian inspired. It's a really fun place. They are definitely, so there's, take a step back here. There's different types of people that I've found that open breweries. There's um, the kind of the home brewing geeks that just really want to take it to the next level. You've got the science guys that enjoy kind of um, the chemistry of it, or the yeast wrangling, things like that. And then there's the tinkerers, as I call them. The guys who like creating their brew house and building this thing. And I think the guys at Humble Monk are definitely tinkerers, and you can see that with how they've created this place. They are currently working on building their bigger brew house. They are brewing on a small brew house right now, a pilot system basically, and are almost ready to get their 10-barrel system up and running. They have some 30-barrel equipment too that they have been, again, tinkering with, that may be up and running someday, but the 10-barrel is the next step right here as they keep growing. So it's a really interesting story, really fun place, really great people, and it's a good episode. If you have not listened to it already, you should do that. I haven't checked to see how many people have downloaded it today, but the notice that I got in my email this morning was that it was doing pretty good. So evidently a lot of you guys are curious about them too. So check them out, listen to the episode, and actually go there and check them out. There's a lot of fun stuff around town, including a lot of places that you probably haven't stopped at yet. So do that. So that's what's happening in the world of the gnome right now. In my world, we are getting ready to prep for a third birthday party. So that's been consuming a lot of my time lately. I had no idea how many people were going to be invited to that when my wife started putting the list together, I was like, oh my God, we can't do this in our house. So we are doing it in a tap room because what we figured out was that as you start looking for event spaces, tap rooms are kind of the best deal that you can find for an event space. And we've got some really great places around town with some good sized event spaces. So yeah, my 3-year-old gets her birthday party in a brewery, and I think let me see if I can pull up her. I think in my notes I keep a list of how many breweries she's been to. Let me look. It will be her 33rd brewery in her short life, so that's fun. Uh, so, um, as we wrap up the show, just keep that in mind. If you're ever looking for an event space, look at breweries because they, I think, are the best option around town. Um, so that's that. That's it for this week's show that is not a show. Um, like I said, if you do not already subscribe to Cincy Brewcast, do that. If you don't subscribe to Drinking with a Gnome, go ahead and do that too, because I promise, I know I've said this a whole bunch of times, but I think I'm going to get a new episode up this week. It will be kind of a road trip episode where we're going to talk about moonshine in Gatlinburg. And then I have a couple other episodes lined up to come pretty shortly after that. So we've got some fun stuff coming. The biggest thing that you can do, I know a lot of what this revolves around is Patreon, and that's what made this show happen. But if you don't want to do that, the biggest help, even if you do that, the biggest help that you can do is just sharing the show with people that you know that like craft beer in Cincinnati. That's how this whole thing started, and that's how this whole thing keeps growing, is from new people learning about it from you guys. So thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying. It's going to be fun as we really get into 2020. There's some really exciting stuff that I've got in the works. I finally finished let me show you this before I kick this off here. The brewery guide, the new brewery guide, is finally finished,